So I'm just happy that we're here, March 7th. I believe, did they announce that it's here? And
Yeah,
did they just say
yeah.
March 7th? Yeah,
Yep.
March 7th is in Las Vegas, the 9th Island, baby. It's good to be home, so I can't wait.
Yeah, you said you were down to fight Charles, but you want to kind of do it on your terms, fight in Las Vegas.
Yes,
You've
sir.
had good history here.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's a fight that everyone wants to see. It's a really exciting fight. So for you, when you think about it, though, how does it play out between Charles and you?
I go out there, I get my
And I know that you watched Charles Oliveira's last fight and, kind of had a reaction to that. Were you streaming when you watched that, actually? Or you streamed, like, right after, right? So you were kind of on
Yeah.
top of that.
yeah. My stream started right after. I mean, that's the fight I want. That's the fight I want. That's the fight.
Everything you think you know about this fight? Completely wrong. This isn't just some random matchup the UFC threw together to fill a card. This is the resolution of one of MMA's most controversial and unfinished stories. And when you hear what really went down the first time these two were supposed to fight, you're going to understand why Max Holloway has been waiting years for this moment. Because Charles Oliveira keeps claiming he was injured, keeps saying that's why their original bout fell through, but Max isn't buying it for 1 second. And neither should you.
Oliveira versus Holloway. I nearly said that was Holloway. But that's Oliveira versus Holloway, which is a sick fight. I reckon Oliveira is going to win.
Here's what actually happened that nobody wants to talk about. When Oliveira pulled out of their first scheduled fight, citing injury, Max and his team did their homework. They dug deep. They investigated every single medical report, every doctor's note, every piece of documentation. And you know what they found? Absolutely nothing concrete. Nothing that definitively proved Charles was actually hurt. Max has been sitting on this information for years, knowing that one day he'd get his chance to call Oliveira out publicly. And that day just arrived. This isn't just about settling a score in the octagon. This is about exposing what Max believes was a deliberate duck job by one of the sport's most respected champions.
About, and your thoughts on fighting Charles Oliveira?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to go before the end of the year, but after that last fight, we had some injuries that we had to take care of. But we're here now. At the end of the day, with everything going on, I'm just happy to throw my name in the mix. Put my name in the hat, and we got Charles. For the BMF title.
But here's where it gets absolutely wild. Both of these fighters have completely transformed since that original booking fell through. Max Holloway has evolved from a featherweight volume striker into a legitimate BMF champion who knocked out Justin Gaethje with one of the most iconic finishes in UFC history. Meanwhile, Charles Oliveira went on a tear that saw him capture the lightweight championship and establish himself as one of the most dangerous finishers in the entire sport. So when they finally step into that octagon, we're not getting the same two fighters who were supposed to meet years ago. We're getting the absolute peak versions of both men, with championship experience, legendary knockout power, and everything to prove.
Opponent, he wanted this fight. He asked for you. He asked for you for the BMF belt. What are your thoughts on Charles's career? Because like yourself, he's been a champion. He's had an incredible fighting career, beat the best of the best. What kind of challenge does he present for you?
Amazing fighter, great fighter. I mean, just sucks that he got to run into me again.
We know his submission skills. We know that obviously he holds that record. We know absolutely everything you can do in the octagon as well. But who imposes their will? What sort of matchup are we expecting between the two of you? We know you're going to throw down, but what does it look like stylistically?
It's going to be a fun fight, He's a fighter. He's your fighter's favorite fighter. I'm your fighter's favorite fighter, and that's what you're going to get. A lot of fans online they're kind of heartbroken about this fight happening. So at the end of the day, I get it. It is what it is. Whenever you get a Charles Oliveira, whenever you get myself fighting, it's going to be a fight. So
Now listen to this part, because this is where the business side gets really interesting. Max isn't just defending his BMF title here. He's using this fight as a launching pad for something much bigger. See, Max has already tasted championship gold at featherweight, but he knows his future lies at lightweight. And beating Charles Oliveira, a former lightweight champion, doesn't just defend his BMF status. It catapults him directly into title contention in the most stacked division in the sport. This is championship chess at its finest. Max is thinking 3 moves ahead, positioning himself for a run at the undisputed lightweight title while simultaneously settling old scores and defending the belt he worked so hard to win.
Com certeza vai ser uma grande luta, né? Tudo pode acontecer. A gente tá falando sobre MMA, eu vou caçar o tempo inteiro, ou eu vou nocautear, eu vou finalizar, eu quero vencer.
For sure it's going to be a great fight. Listen, anything can happen. It's MMA. I'm going to be hunting all the time. May not knock him out, maybe finish him, but I'm gonna for sure.
And get this, Charles Oliveira is approaching this fight like it might be his last dance. He's openly talking about this being the perfect stage to cement his legacy before potentially walking away from the sport. Think about the pressure that puts on both men. For Max, this is about proving he belongs among the lightweight elite and that his BMF title win wasn't a fluke. For Charles, this is about going out on top, proving that his championship reign was legitimate, and showing that he's still the most dangerous submission artist in the game. When you have two fighters with that kind of motivation, that kind of desperation, you get wars, not fights. Wars.
Diz que tem um interesse, é uma luta que seria uma revanche pra você, né? E que você realmente gostaria de ter essa revanche?
Sim, na realidade é um cara que eu respeito demais. Na minha última luta com ele, todo mundo sabe, eu tive uma lesão, ele fala que não, mas eu tive uma lesão, né? Então, com certeza seria um bom...
Here's the kicker, though. The way this fight got announced was an absolute disaster, and it's got people in the MMA world fired up for all the wrong reasons. The UFC tried to do this dramatic reveal with empty chairs and highlight packages, but they botched it completely. They showed the fighters' faces before the big reveal, forgot to put nameplates on the chairs, and basically gave away the surprise before building any real suspense. Industry insiders are calling it one of the sloppiest rollouts they've ever seen for such a massive fight. But you know what? None of that matters once that cage door closes, because what we're getting is pure violence between two of the most skilled fighters on the planet.
You know, ever since I got in the UFC from my first fight to now, you know, I want the undisputed belt. That's all I want, you know. And you know, I had it for a little bit in another weight class. Now we're in a different weight class. I feel good. I feel strong. I feel fast. I feel great, man. I feel really great. And I'm just excited to have my name in the pot, you know, and I get to take one step closer to that goal. We're getting my hand raised on March 7th.
But wait, it gets worse for the UFC's marketing department. Jorge Masvidal, the original BMF champion, is out here throwing shade at how they're handling his legacy. Jorge is making it clear that he views Max as one of the absolute elite talents in the sport, someone who brings suffocating pressure every single time he fights. But he's also emphasizing that the BMF title was never meant to be some novelty belt. According to Masvidal, only the absolute cream of the crop should even be allowed to compete for it. And when he looks at this matchup between Max and Charles, he sees exactly the kind of violent, action-packed war that the BMF title was created to showcase. This isn't about point fighting or boring decisions. This is about two killers trying to destroy each other for 15 minutes straight.
Defining moment.
Big on at one point it was fighting Islam, it was becoming UFC lightweight champion. Now it's fighting home in Brazil. Once we get past Saturday, what's the next big goal for Charles Oliveira?
Hold up, did you catch what Chael Sonnen just revealed about the politics behind this fight? Sonnen's pointing out something crucial that most people are missing. Charles didn't just challenge Max to a fight. He specifically went after the BMF title, and that distinction is absolutely massive in terms of negotiating power and championship implications. See, in today's UFC, you can have a massive main event between two top contenders, but unless there's a belt on the line, it doesn't carry the same weight for title shot implications. By making this specifically about the BMF championship, both fighters ensure that the winner walks away with legitimate hardware and a stronger case for future title opportunities. It's brilliant business wrapped up in violent intentions.
Complain about, but I think what that leaves open is the chance for me to get a rematch against Max Holloway or Charles Oliveira, get my belt and get the BMF belt. And ultimately that was the script I've been speaking into existence since the Fiziev fight. I thought I was going to fight Ilya in January, and then I was going to fight Max or whoever had to be Max or Oliver. Now they're fighting, but before it was just Max. I was going to fight Max in the White House card and then have both.
Now here's something that's going to blow your mind about the stylistic matchup. Charles Oliveira has been quietly evolving his game in ways that most casual fans haven't noticed. He's been relying less on his legendary submission skills and more on offensive wrestling in recent fights. Look at his performances against Chandler, Geith, and Poirier. He's been taking guys down and controlling them rather than hunting for the spectacular finishes that made him famous. And that tactical shift might be exactly what gives Max Holloway the advantage he needs. Because Max's takedown defense has always been underrated, and his cardio advantage becomes even more pronounced if Charles is expending energy on wrestling instead of staying on the feet where his striking can be most effective.
Listen, Max Holloway said this on his YouTube channel. The BMF belt to me personally represents just a bad mother effer. You know, blessed man forever. Only very few get the fight for this belt. The belt was a laughing stock before. All of a sudden I got it and everyone wants to fight for it now. It's hilarious. It's fun to me. What do you make of that? Him saying that it was a laughing stock before, because not many people held that belt. You were the one that put it on the map.
I mean, I love Max as a fighter. If that's his opinion, that's his opinion. You know, I think he's one of the best fighters to do it. He's a dog when he goes in there. But whether it had been me or Nate fighting Max, it wasn't gonna be like his best night either, I think, you know. So I don't think how in laughing stock in what way, because the skill level is obviously there, you know. I mean, I would love to fight Max just on a stylistic matchup. I think
Here's where the fight gets really dangerous for both men. Charles still has that devastating right hand that can end fights in an instant, and his leg kick defense has improved dramatically over his last few fights. But his striking has lost some of that knockout impact lately, which is why he's been transitioning to grappling more quickly. Meanwhile, Max's volume, striking, and pressure could overwhelm Charles if the fight stays standing. But one perfectly timed submission attempt could end Max's night in seconds. We're talking about a fight where both men have clear paths to victory, which means we're going to get 15 minutes of pure chaos as each fighter tries to impose their will and avoid their opponent's strengths.
Holloway, that's Oliveira versus Holloway. I nearly said that's Holloway. But that's Oliveira versus Holloway, which is a sick fight. I reckon Oliveira's going to win that one.
So there you have it. Years of bad blood stemming from a controversial fight cancellation, two fighters at the absolute peaks of their careers, championship implications for multiple divisions, and styles that guarantee fireworks from the opening bell. This isn't just about the BMF title. This is about legacy, respect, and proving who really belongs at the top of the lightweight mountain. And honestly, this fight has all the ingredients to be an instant classic that people will be talking about for years. So here's my question for you, drop it in the comments. Do you think Max's pressure and cardio will overwhelm Charles, or will Oliveira's finishing ability prove too much for the BMF champion? If this breakdown got you hyped for what might be the fight of the year, smash that like button, subscribe for more in-depth MMA analysis, and hit the notification bell because when this fight goes down, you're going to want to catch all the aftermath coverage. I'll see you in the next one.
Point, right? Like, I think we can come out and announce this now. I'm assuming that you know Charles Oliveira, when he gets done on Saturday, he calls out Max and he asks him to put up the belt. By the way, which is an important distinction to make. Colby Covington fought George Masvidal. It was personal, it was Vegas, it was main event. George was champion. We, Team Colby, assumed it was for the belt. We win the fight, we don't get the belt. I mean, I'm just sharing for you. It is important for a smart veteran like Charles to make the distinction and call for the belt. It's important when Max responds that we're all clear that...
But hold on, because I just realized we haven't even talked about the elephant in the room that could completely change everything about this fight. The weight cut. Max Holloway has been campaigning at featherweight for most of his career, and while he looked absolutely phenomenal against Justin Gaethje at lightweight, that was one fight. One perfect performance. Charles Oliveira has been living at lightweight for years. His body has adapted to carrying that extra muscle mass, and he knows exactly how to prepare for war at 155 pounds. What happens if Max's body betrays him? What happens if that extra weight slows down his legendary cardio just enough to give Charles the opening he needs? Because let me tell you something, in a fight this close, the smallest physical advantage could be the difference between glory and devastation.
Get called out. They don't do the calling. Now that makes me very curious. What's up with these two guys? I've known Max for his entire career. In fact, fought on a card with Max, and it was either his debut or it was his second ever fight. So when I tell you I knew him, that's the day I met him. So when I tell you I knew him his entire UFC career, this is a literal statement. He's awesome. I think you guys know that. I mean, he's a wonderful guy, is my point. They're not all. You get disappointed plenty of times. Max is a wonderful guy. But you guys know that. I'm just getting to know Charles on a personal level. He came over here, did an interview that we brought to you. He's a wonderful guy. They're not all. So when you have two baby faces, when you have two good guys, two wonderful guys. When are you gonna call a guy wonderful, by the way? I don't know if I've ever done. You got two wonderful guys. Why do they not get along? What is their problem with each other? What really happened between these two? And that has not come out.
And speaking of physical advantages, let's talk about something that nobody wants to acknowledge. Charles Oliveira might have the most underrated chin in the entire lightweight division. Everyone focuses on his submission skills and his knockout power, but this man has been dropped multiple times in fights and always found a way to recover and come back stronger. He's been hurt by Chandler, rocked by Geithch, and still managed to turn those moments of vulnerability into spectacular comeback victories. That mental toughness, that ability to find his best performance when he's at his most hurt, that's championship DNA right there. Max hits hard and he hits often, but if Charles can weather the early storm and drag Max into deep waters, we might see a completely different fight than anyone expects. But here's what's really going to shock people about this matchup. The betting odds are way closer than they should be, and that tells you everything you need to know about how the smart money views this fight. Professional gamblers and fight analysts who make their living predicting these outcomes can't definitively pick a winner. That almost never happens with fights involving fighters of this caliber. Usually, there's a clear favorite based on recent performance, stylistic advantages, or physical attributes. But when you break down every single aspect of this fight, from striking to grappling to cardio to fight IQ, both men have legitimate advantages that could determine the outcome. That uncertainty, that genuine 50-50 nature of this matchup, is exactly why this fight has the potential to be an absolute war from the opening bell. Now let me tell you about something that's flying completely under the radar, but could be the most important factor in determining who wins this fight: the coaching adjustments. Max Holloway has been working with a completely revamped team that helped him prepare for the Geithch fight, and they've clearly identified specific weaknesses in Charles's game that they believe they can exploit. Meanwhile, Charles has been training with submission specialists and boxing coaches who have been drilling scenarios specifically designed to neutralize Max's volume striking. Both camps have had months to study tape, identify patterns, and develop game plans that could completely surprise their opponent. This isn't just going to be a fight between two elite athletes. This is going to be a chess match between two of the best coaching teams in mixed martial arts, with each side trying to implement strategies that their opponent hasn't prepared for. Here's something that's going to give you chills when you really think about it. Both of these fighters have legendary comeback abilities, but they manifest in completely different ways. When Max gets hurt, he responds by increasing his volume and overwhelming his opponent with relentless pressure. When Charles gets hurt, he becomes more dangerous, more desperate, and starts hunting for the fight-ending submission or knockout. So what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object? What happens when Max's pressure meets Charles's desperation? We're potentially looking at a fight where both men get hurt, both men dig deep, and both men enter that legendary zone where career-defining performances are born. Those are the moments that create UFC Hall of Fame highlights that get played for decades. And let's talk about the psychological warfare that's been happening behind the scenes, because it's absolutely fascinating. Max has been planting seeds of doubt about Charles's toughness and commitment, questioning whether he really wants to be in there with someone who brings the kind of relentless pressure that Max is famous for. Meanwhile, Charles has been quietly confident, almost dismissive of Max's power, suggesting that he's faced much more dangerous strikers and handled them with ease. Both men are trying to get inside their opponent's head before they even step into the octagon. But here's the thing about elite fighters at this level. Psychological games only work if there's some underlying truth to them. And when you look at both men's recent performances, it's impossible to question either fighter's heart or commitment to violence. But wait, there's another layer to this story that makes it even more compelling. The timing of this fight is absolutely perfect for both men's career trajectories, but for completely different reasons. Max is 29 years old, entering what should be the prime years of his career, with his body holding up beautifully and his skills continuing to evolve. This fight represents his opportunity to establish himself as a legitimate force at lightweight, while he's still young enough to make multiple title runs. Charles is 35 years old, which means he's probably looking at his last few opportunities to secure massive paydays and cement his legacy among the all-time greats. When you have a young lion trying to establish his kingdom, fighting against an old king trying to protect his throne, you get the kind of desperation and violence that creates legendary fights. Here's something that's going to completely change how you view this matchup: the referee assignment. The UFC hasn't announced who's going to officiate this fight yet, but that decision could massively impact the outcome. If they assign someone who's quick to stand fighters up from the ground, that favors Max's striking game and eliminates some of Charles's submission opportunities. If they assign someone who lets the fight develop naturally on the ground, that gives Charles more opportunities to hunt for the finish if he gets the takedown. Elite fighters and their camps pay attention to these details because they understand that every small advantage matters when you're facing someone of equal skill level. The referee's tendencies regarding clinch work, ground control, and fighter safety could literally determine who walks away with the BMF title. Now here's where things get really interesting from a business perspective. Both fighters are positioning this as potentially their most important fight, but they're doing it for completely different reasons. Max is treating this as his official coming-out party at lightweight, his announcement that he's ready to compete with the absolute best in the most competitive division in the sport. A win over Charles doesn't just defend his BMF title. It establishes him as a legitimate threat to whoever holds the lightweight championship. Charles is treating this as his opportunity to prove that his championship reign was legitimate and that he's still one of the most dangerous fighters in the world. For him, this isn't about building towards something bigger. This is about proving that he's already achieved greatness and still has more to give. But let's get real about something that nobody wants to discuss. The pressure on both fighters is absolutely immense, but it's manifesting in completely different ways. Max has been talking about this fight like it's a foregone conclusion, like his pressure and cardio advantages make him the obvious favorite. But that confidence might be masking some serious anxiety about whether his body can perform at the same level at lightweight over a full 25-minute fight. Charles has been much more reserved in his predictions, talking about respecting Max's skills while quietly expressing confidence in his ability to find the finish when the opportunity presents itself. Both approaches have merit, but they also reveal different psychological states heading into what might be the most important fight of both men's careers. And here's something that should terrify both fighters. They're both coming off career-defining performances that might be impossible to replicate. Max's knockout of Justin Gaethje was one of the most perfect moments in recent UFC history, a culmination of years of skill development and strategic planning. Charles's recent performances have showcased his evolution from a pure submission artist into a complete mixed martial artist who can win fights in multiple ways. But what happens when two fighters who are coming off the best performances of their careers face each other? Someone's perfect night is going to turn into someone else's nightmare, and the margin for error is going to be absolutely microscopic. Here's the final piece of this puzzle that makes this fight absolutely unmissable. The winner doesn't just get the BMF title and the immediate recognition that comes with it. They get positioned as the most compelling challenger for whoever emerges from the current lightweight title picture. With Islam Makhachev, Sean O'Malley potentially moving up, and other contenders making their cases, the winner of this fight immediately becomes part of the conversation for the biggest fights and the biggest paydays in the sport. That's the kind of motivation that pushes fighters beyond their normal limits. That makes them willing to take risks and dig deeper than they ever have before. When you combine that level of motivation with the skill sets we're talking about, you get fights that become part of UFC folklore.